Every time you ask ChatGPT a question, you're not just tapping into artificial intelligence. You're pulling power from the electrical grid. Somewhere a server hums to life, chips heat up, and cooling systems kick in. That simple query costs energy, lots of it. And as AI spreads across every facet of modern life, from healthcare diagnostics to autonomous vehicles, the energy bill is mounting at an alarming pace. What most people don't realize is that this AI revolution isn't just a technological race. It's becoming an infrastructure war between two superpowers, and the outcome may determine which country dominates the 21st century. The numbers are staggering. In 2024, data centers worldwide consumed approximately 415 terawatt-hours of electricity, roughly 1.5% of global electricity demand. By 2030, that figure is projected to more than double to 945 terawatt-hours, equivalent to Japan's entire annual electricity consumption. The United States leads this charge dramatically, accounting for 45% of global data center electricity consumption in 2024, with expectations to consume 426 terawatt-hours by 2030, a 133% increase. China follows at 25%, but its growth trajectory is even steeper. The driving force behind this surge is artificial intelligence. Training a single large language model can consume as much electricity as hundreds of American households use in a year. The computational demands are relentless. NVIDIA's latest Blackwell GPU architecture requires 120 kilowatts per rack, nearly double its predecessor. Future generations will demand even more, with projected power consumption reaching 360 kilowatts per rack by 2027. This isn't a temporary spike. It's a permanent recalibration of global energy needs. Here's where the story becomes a tale of two systems. The United States, constrained by its lawyerly society, faces a construction crisis. Building a data center from breaking ground to operation takes approximately 7 years on average, 4.8 years. Navigating pre-construction permits, environmental reviews, and stakeholder consultations, followed by 2.4 years of actual construction. NVIDIA CEO Jensen Huang captured the frustration perfectly when he noted that in the United States, standing up an AI supercomputer takes about 3 years, while in China, they can build a hospital in a weekend. That's not hyperbole, that's the engineering state at work. The contrast is brutal. In China, data center development follows an entirely different timeline. Construction typically completes in 18 to 24 months, not 7 years. The government has licensed over 7,000 data centers since 2022. Beijing invested $3.4 billion in data center projects in 2024 alone, a tenfold increase from 2023. The speed isn't just impressive, it's strategic. China's East Data West Computing Initiative is building massive data centers in poorer western provinces, spreading computational power across the nation with the kind of centralized planning impossible in the United States. This isn't merely about construction speed, it's about energy infrastructure. Huang pointed out something peculiar. China has twice as much energy capacity as the United States, despite having a smaller economy. Even more troubling, China's energy capacity continues to grow steeply, while America's remains relatively flat. This disparity threatens to become the defining constraint in the AI race. You can design the most sophisticated chip in the world, but if you can't power it reliably, you've lost. The United States does retain critical advantages in semiconductor technology. American companies lead in chip design and manufacturing processes generations ahead of Chinese competitors. But chips alone don't win the race. They need power, cooling, and physical infrastructure. And here, the lawyerly society reveals its fatal flaw. Grid connection delays have become catastrophic. Dominion Energy in Virginia, home to Data Center Alley, announced that new large data centers requiring over 100 megawatts would face wait times of up to 7 years for grid connections. In the United Kingdom, wait times can reach 15 years. In Germany, 7 years. The infrastructure simply cannot keep pace with demand. The American response has been predictable: turn to fossil fuels. Despite climate commitments, utilities are racing to build natural gas plants. Projects totaling 38 gigawatts of captive gas plants currently in development are explicitly planned to power data centers. The United States has doubled the amount of gas and oil-fired capacity in development over the past year, driven largely by the AI industry. Goldman Sachs estimates that meeting increased power demands will require a 60-40 split between natural gas and renewables through 2030. This locks the country into fossil fuel dependence precisely when it should be transitioning away. China, meanwhile, is executing one of the world's most ambitious nuclear expansion programs. As of late 2024, China had 102 reactors either operational, under construction, or approved, with combined installed capacity of 113 gigawatts. Nuclear generation capacity is expected to reach 200 gigawatts by 2030 and scale to 400-500 gigawatts by 2050. The world's first commercial fourth-generation high-temperature gas-cooled reactor became operational in China in 2023. Construction of the Linglong 1 small modular reactor is scheduled for completion by 2026. This is the engineering state operating at full capacity. Long-term planning, massive investment, and rapid execution. American tech companies are finally waking up to the nuclear imperative. In the past year, major firms have signed contracts for over 10 gigawatts of potential new nuclear capacity. Microsoft is reopening 3 Mile Island to power its data centers. Google signed a deal with Kairos Power for small modular reactors. Amazon invested $500 million with Dominion Energy to develop reactors near North Anna Nuclear Power Station. Meta announced it's seeking proposals for up to 4 gigawatts of nuclear power. These are essential steps, but they face a brutal timeline problem. Small modular reactors won't reach critical mass until the early 2030s at the earliest. Building new nuclear plants requires specialized labor, complex permitting, sufficient uranium supplies, and capital costs 5 to 10 times higher than natural gas alternatives. The Energy Department hopes to have at least 3 reactors achieve criticality by July 2026. But even optimistic projections suggest nuclear can provide only 10 gigawatts of new capacity by 2030, far short of the 85 to 90 gigawatts needed to meet all projected data center demand growth. The geopolitical implications extend beyond energy. This infrastructure race intersects with cybersecurity threats that could determine the outcome of future conflicts. U.S. intelligence agencies assess that Chinese state-sponsored cyber actors are pre-positioning themselves within American critical infrastructure for potential disruptive or destructive attacks. Operations like Volt Typhoon have gained access to telecommunications, energy, water, and transportation sectors. These intrusions aren't designed for espionage alone. They're preparing digital kill switches that could be activated during a crisis, particularly around Taiwan. FBI Director Christopher Wray testified before Congress about the scale of the threat. Chinese hacking groups have burrowed into America's critical infrastructure for at least 5 years, targeting power grids, oil pipelines, and water systems. The sophistication of these attacks is increasing, with AI itself being weaponized to orchestrate more complex intrusions. The Flax Typhoon operation infected over 260,000 devices globally, creating a botnet capable of massive disruption. Salt Typhoon penetrated major U.S. internet service providers, potentially accessing sensitive routing functions that could compromise military communications and civilian infrastructure simultaneously. The irony is profound. As America races to build AI infrastructure powered by an increasingly digital grid, it's creating new vulnerabilities that adversaries are actively exploiting. Every data center connected to the grid becomes a potential target. Every smart system becomes an entry point. The more digitally dependent the infrastructure becomes, the more fragile it grows. China's cyber attacks on U.S. infrastructure have tripled in the past 4 years, growing more sophisticated with each iteration. Meanwhile, American utilities struggle with aging grid infrastructure, supply chain bottlenecks, and regulatory obstacles that delay modernization efforts. Consider the broader economic context. By 2030, data centers in the United States are projected to account for 8.6% of all electricity demand, more than double their current 3.5% share. This is happening while electrification accelerates across transportation, heating, and industry. The country faces a simultaneous surge in demand from electric vehicles, heat pumps, industrial growth, and AI infrastructure. The grid wasn't designed for this. Transmission infrastructure is decades old. Permitting for new transmission lines takes years. Investment in grid modernization lags far behind need. China's centralized planning model sidesteps many of these obstacles. When the engineering state decides infrastructure is needed, it gets built. The country constructed an expressway network, twice the length of America's interstate system in 4 decades. It built a high-speed rail network 20 times more extensive than Japan's. It installed more solar and wind capacity than the rest of the world combined. This same machinery is now being directed toward AI infrastructure. The results are predictable: rapid deployment, massive scale, and strategic positioning across domestic and international markets. But the engineering state carries its own risks. China's rush to build has created problems. Despite licensing 7,000 data centers, over 100 were canceled in 2024 due to financial unviability. Utilization rates hover between 20 to 30%, far below efficient levels. Beijing now worries about capacity glut and is developing a centralized national cloud platform to sell excess computing power. Local officials, incentivized to build infrastructure for career advancement, have invested in vanity projects that burden cities with billions in debt. The system rewards construction over functionality, speed over sustainability. There's also the human cost of the engineering state's efficiency obsession. The zero-COVID lockdowns demonstrated how treating social issues as engineering problems produces catastrophic outcomes. Shanghai's 2-month quarantine of 25 million people succeeded only in generating misery, food supply breakdowns, medical absurdities where hospitals refused critical care without negative tests, and the temporary separation of COVID-positive babies from parents. The surveillance apparatus that enabled such control QR codes regulating entry to public spaces, digital tracking of every movement fueled the darker implications of total state capacity. The consequences are visible in the ruin movement, wealthy Chinese immigrating and buying property abroad, creative professionals fleeing to Thailand or other countries with lower ceilings of control. The engineering state delivered sustained rises in living standards, but is now chasing away the wealth and creativity it needs for its ultimate quest for power. This presents both a warning and an opportunity. Systems optimized purely for construction and speed eventually sacrifice the human elements that drive innovation and long-term prosperity. The United States retains profound advantages. Its commitment to pluralism enables debate, criticism, and diverse voices. This prevents catastrophic state-led errors. American universities attract global talent. Its capital markets fund innovation. Its legal system, for all its procedural burdens, protects individual rights and property. These are not small things. They're foundational to sustained competitive advantage. But these virtues cannot compensate for an inability to build. A society that takes 17 years to construct a partial high-speed rail line, while spending $128 billion, is a society that has lost its capacity for action. The path forward requires balancing competing imperatives. The United States must recover its engineering heritage without abandoning its legal protections. It must accelerate infrastructure development without descending into authoritarian efficiency. This means reforming permitting processes to distinguish between essential review and procedural obstruction. It means prioritizing strategic infrastructure projects with the same urgency applied to wartime mobilization. It means recognizing that failure to build quickly is itself a security threat. On energy specifically, the response must be comprehensive. Natural gas will play a transitional role, but long-term dependence locks in emissions and vulnerability. Renewables paired with battery storage can meet much of the demand, but they require grid modernization and transmission infrastructure that takes years to build. Nuclear offers baseload power with minimal emissions, but deployment timelines extend into the 2030s. All three must advance simultaneously. This is an problem, not an or problem. The energy infrastructure race is also a test of democratic capitalism's ability to respond to strategic challenges. Can pluralistic systems with distributed power and individual rights mobilize resources and build at the scale required to compete with centralized autocracies? The answer isn't predetermined. It depends on choices made today about permitting reform, investment priorities, and political will. The stakes are existential. Lose the AI race, and America loses technological leadership, economic competitiveness, and ultimately military capability. China understands this clearly. Its investments in AI are projected to reach $84 minus $98 billion in 2025, with $56 billion from government sources. This is part of a national strategy prioritizing technological sovereignty and global competitiveness. The country views AI infrastructure as essential to its geopolitical position. Every data center built, every nuclear reactor deployed, every improvement in computational capacity strengthens its hand in future conflicts over Taiwan, trade dominance, and global influence. The American response has been reactive rather than strategic. Tech companies scramble to secure power through individual deals. Utilities patch together solutions. Government policy remains fragmented across federal, state, and local jurisdictions with competing interests and overlapping authorities. It's no unified national strategy comparable to China's centralized planning. This diffusion of responsibility might be inevitable in a democratic system, but it's also a strategic vulnerability when competing against a coordinated adversary. What's needed is recognition that infrastructure is national security. The defense industrial base cannot manufacture munitions quickly enough if it lacks reliable power. The military cannot project force if its supply lines depend on vulnerable civilian infrastructure. Economic inequality worsens when housing costs soar because cities block construction. Climate goals become impossible without large-scale infrastructure projects. Every major challenge facing the country intersects with the ability to build. This is the fundamental lesson of the high-speed rail debacle. The California train isn't just an embarrassment, it's a symptom of deeper dysfunction. When a wealthy, technologically advanced democracy cannot accomplish what China did in 3 years even after 17 years and $128 billion, something is fundamentally broken. The breakdown isn't in engineering knowledge or financial resources. It's an institutional capacity. The lawyerly society has created so many veto points, so many opportunities for obstruction that ambitious projects become impossible. Breaking this paralysis requires elevating diverse voices in decision-making. Lawyers must be joined by engineers, economists, scientists, and community representatives who understand both the necessity of action and the importance of protecting legitimate interests. It requires distinguishing between essential environmental protections and procedural weaponization. It requires accepting that perfect process leading to no outcome is worse than good enough process leading to actual construction. The energy crisis sparked by AI is accelerating these choices. Data centers consume electricity, whether America builds sufficient infrastructure or not. If the country fails to expand capacity, the result won't be less AI development. It will be AI development happening elsewhere in countries with faster permitting, cheaper power, and fewer procedural obstacles. The same companies that talk about powering their operations with clean energy will ultimately go where the energy exists, regardless of source or location. China's advantage in speed and scale isn't permanent. The engineering state's rush to build creates inefficiencies, overcapacity, and mounting debt. Its authoritarian controls stifle creativity and drive away talent. Its brittle systems lack resilience when confronted with unexpected challenges. These vulnerabilities are real and exploitable, but they don't automatically translate into American advantage. That requires deliberate action to recover construction capability while preserving democratic values. The AI energy crisis presents a choice. The United States can continue on its current path, watching as procedural paralysis cedes technological leadership to rivals, or it can rediscover the dynamism that built the interstate highway system, landed humans on the moon, and constructed the modern electrical grid. The capacity still exists, the knowledge remains. What's missing is the institutional will to prioritize building over endless review, outcomes over process, and strategic necessity over individual obstruction. The next 5 years will determine which system prevails. China will continue building at breakneck speed, accepting the costs and inefficiencies that come with centralized planning. The United States must prove that democratic capitalism can deliver essential infrastructure without sacrificing its core values. This isn't about becoming more like China. It's about becoming more like America used to be: ambitious, confident, and capable of transforming vision into a reality. The stakes transcend AI. They extend to every aspect of national power, economic competitiveness, military capability, technological innovation, and global influence. Energy infrastructure is the foundation on which these capabilities rest. Build it quickly and cleanly, and America can lead the AI revolution while meeting climate goals. Fail to build it, and watch as competitors pull ahead, not because they have better ideas or superior technology, but because they retained the capacity for action, while America perfected the art of obstruction. This is the real crisis hidden beneath AI's energy demands. It's not a technical problem, but a systemic one. Not a question of knowledge, but of will. The country that wins this race won't be the one with the best chips or the cleverest algorithms. It will be the one that can actually build the infrastructure to power them. Right now, that country is China. Whether it remains so depends on choices being made today in permitting offices, utility boardrooms, legislative chambers, and court proceedings across America. The lawyerly society must learn to build again, or accept the consequences of its procedural perfection.